Hi, welcome to Expert Talks at Maverick. This is the interview series with thought leaders in the AI, analytics, and transformation space. My name is Mahadevann Iyerr, Mahaa for short. I am your host for today. I'm the co founder and CEO of Maverick, which is a managed marketplace for on demand analytics and business consultancy services. Our guest for today is Mamta Rajnayak. Mamta is the Vice President and Head of AI and ML platforms and products at American Express. Prior to American Express, Mamta worked with Accenture as Managing Director and Retail Analytics Leader at their Global AI Hub. She's also had stellar careers at Adobe, Evalueserve, and ICICI Bank. Mamta is a MA in Applied Operational Research and a MSc in Economics. She is an innovator who has got 5 patents to her name. She speaks frequently at industry forums on the evolving role of AI and ML. Mamta, thank you so much for making time to speak with us at Expert Talks at Maverick. It's a pleasure speaking to you.
Thank you so much for having me here, Maha. Super excited, thrilled to talk to you, and very, very excited for what you're going to throw at me today.
Okay, great. So let me first start. And you've now almost for 16 years you've been in the analytics space. The last 10, 12 you have actually led organizations, analytics organizations. And so I wanted to understand from you as a leader and practitioner of analytics, what are some of the critical success factors for creating impact through analytics, right? And if you could throw light on some of those. And also expand on the importance of why domain knowledge and situational awareness becomes extremely important, right? I'm starting off with this question because I saw one of your interviews where you said that 85 to 90% of analytics projects don't get productionalized, right? And which is true, right? I mean the numbers vary, but this is a known fact, right? And so given that background, how does one make analytics successful and impactful?
For sure. So I guess, starting my last end, which was at Accenture, that's where I started, leading big practices and, created big teams, which were driving analytical, success for our clients. And I think one thing which I found common among all the clients, whenever we were doing any work for them, they knew exactly what they wanted the results to convert into the business results, right? It was important for any consulting organization, or for that matter, even if you're sitting in a, captive, if you are an analytical team, then you are pretty much like a consulting, team for them. So for anyone who's bringing in those analytical skills to the table, it is extremely important, more than even their technical skills. It is extremely important to be able to relate to the layman business problems that the business throws at you and convert that into an analytical solution or an analytical problem, first of all, right? I mean, so I would say framing an analytical problem itself solves half the, battle right there. If you're not able to do a great job at that, then it'll be more or less like junk in, junk out, right? So having your solid technical skills is must have, because that's what you are brought into the table for. But at the same time, how do you understand the business problem at hand, and how you would be able to frame your problem in such a way that the data would be able to solve for it? But you mentioned a very great point, Maha, wherein you're talking about the situational leadership, right? That's where the role comes in for senior leaders, right? Wherein you are able to not only come up with the right framework, you're not only able to bring the right team who will be able to deliver the work well, but at the same time, you're able to, you're expected to understand the people psychology, right? There would be so many people sitting on the table. People on the table will have conflicting priorities. So how you as an analytical leader come there, bring them all together, help to find them a place where it will be a win-win situation for all of them. In consulting, also in any of the captive environment, one of the things which I usually play is, being an analytical person, you don't need to you would be known for your technical skills that you bring to the table, but how the business problem gets solved and how it will impact the business ultimately, right? You would enable it, you will help it solve it, but you don't need to really vouch for that limelight to say that, oh, I did it all, right? If you make your stakeholders go and present your work in front of their leadership, in front of the CEOs of their organization, etc., it helps you in two ways. One, the the stakeholder or the business partner who's working with you, they feel confident, they feel that they're a part of the crew, and solving the business problem through AI is always very, very cool, right? It brings in a lot of efficiency, it is the talk of the town, it is something which is everyone wants to do, etc. So it makes them a part of the tribe in a way, right? So they walk along with you, they, instead of contesting you with the results, they try to understand it in more detail, and they anyways are able to better explain to the senior leadership than you, because you would always have that technical language when you're speaking, right? So that's one thing which I always follow. I don't try look for a limelight in front of the senior business leaders when this work gets presented. I let my business partners present it to them. And second thing which I do is also try to understand the if someone is contesting, try to understand where they are coming from, because everyone here on the table is there to achieve business results. That is the success factor, right? So have that trust in your business partners, and if they're contesting something, try to understand why they are doing it and try to help them understand your perspective. Those two things, I feel, do the magic. I mean, it's never that I've seen when you're working with the business partner so closely knit, tied to their business objective, making their business objective your business objectives. It seldom fails as a output, is what I feel.
Oh, excellent. So rightly said. So he says while technical skills are important, you're saying your ability as a change leader to be able to engage with your business stakeholders, right? Understand their priorities, empathize with them, try and build a narrative that suits everyone, is very important. And then, like you said, it's almost like us being the enabler as an analytics team, and making them the heroes or the winners actually helps build the level of trust and synergies with them, right? No, excellent, nice.
Exactly. Exactly.
So now we keep hearing this, that so obviously there is a lot more of you empathize with business, try and understand where they're coming from, and hence you need a lot more of understanding of business of that particular domain or situation, right? Because unlike IT development or systems integration, where you need domain, here it becomes a lot more situational context also becomes very important, right? And like you said, for the same problem to be solved with two different stakeholders, the priorities could be different, and hence the approaches need to be accordingly, flexed and searched to get there, right? Now, so I wanted to understand, in your experience, what are some of the approaches that you have taken to build a little more understanding of business context? Is it based on a problem and the issue, or is it something else that you do from a reading perspective, from a stakeholder engagement perspective, secondary sources of, information? So, how do you go about building that, and how do you ensure that your team also is able to, follow that and build that capability?
Sure, Maha. So I think one of the things which I would always say is, whenever you are going to work on a problem statement that you want to solve, do a thorough power map of your stakeholders, right? Who is the right decision maker? What are the right business problems? Those things you have to do first thing, right? It's like, for anything that you do in life, the more time you spend in planning, the less time you'll have to spend in execution, because you know what you are expected to do. So that's exactly what you need to do for an analytical problem as well, right? You have to do a good power map so that you understand who are the decision makers and what are their priorities, so that later on you're not late in the game in really solving for what they're looking for, right? So that's one thing. Second thing is, it also depends on not only the business priorities, but also how a leader thinks about, for those business priorities. There are some leaders who would really look for a speed, versus some leaders who would think of, creating the best possible solution. And it also depends on, the business domain you may be working with. If I were to take a bank example itself, right? If you are working with someone who is a fraud leader, or is a risk leader, or is a credit leader, they would focus more on the accuracy. Whereas if you're working with a marketing leader, they would focus more on the speed, right?
Correct.
So you have to see what you're doing. Even though their objective is still exactly the same, they both want to create good revenue for the organization, but their basic requirements are different, right? Marketing person would like to woo the customer, invite them to come and try out few things, whereas risk person would like to save dollars by avoiding those risky propositions. Or a fraud leader would like to really, put those checks and balances so that a fraud does not take place, right? And for both for risk and fraud, the proportion of people who are high risk or who have the propensity to commit a fraud is very, very small, right? It will be less than 0.1% or whatever that number could be, right? And in that case, it becomes extremely difficult for any machine learning model or a statistical model to capture that percentage and predict it right. That's why it takes good amount of deep models and very, very niche models to be able to predict it, and hence you may need to spend a lot of time doing that. And also the gain, right? If my accuracy is 91% versus 91.02%, that 02% itself will convert into a lot of dollars for a fraud use case, whereas in marketing use case it won't make so much of a difference, right? So you have to balance that out as well, where you're looking for speed versus the expertise. You also have to see what is the analytical maturity of the stakeholders that you're working with. If you come to someone who does not have a good understanding of the law of large numbers, etc., and you use those technical terms, they will not be able to make out anything out of it, right? But there could be some mature organization. For example, American Excerpt is known for it, right? I mean, we've been doing machine learning ever since 2012, when nobody even knew much about machine learning. So in our organizations, whenever we are talking to business leaders, talking about accuracy, sensitivity, specificity, etc., even to the business leaders, it makes sense to them and they are very much able to understand it. But if you do the same to some other organization which are not so much ahead of the curve in terms of the analytical game, then you may have to really tweak your language. You'll have to really come down to the layman's level and explain to them in that way. And I think third and most important thing that I would say is, again, what is the persona that the stakeholder brings to the table. There are aggressive stakeholders, there are stakeholders who have who would want to do things slower but best in class and things like that. So again, tweak your ways accordingly is what I would say.
Very nicely articulated. Very nicely articulated. So essentially, the maturity of the organization and the individual that you are talking to plays a huge role. The analytics maturity of the organization that you're working in plays a huge role. The type of problem that you're solving, which is, like you said, try to reduce risk or reduce fraud, which are predominantly bottom line saving type of stuff, right? As opposed to marketing, where you're reacting to a changing dynamic market and speed becomes of essence, right? And third is like the stakeholder mapping, persona mapping of what does he or she bring, and their own ability to create change, the level of aggression or passiveness, all that needs to be mapped. Yeah, so essentially what I'm hearing is soft skills are equally or almost more important than the hard and the tech skills in terms of success, right? Great.
And I would say, yeah, and I would say, Maha, this depends on what are your roles and responsibility for that project. So if you're the senior leader here who is interacting with the C-suite or the main stakeholders, then you would need more of a soft skill, because you have your technical team who's backing you up with all the right tools and techniques, and they would be able to do that job for you, right? You just need to understand what they have done, help them, guide them if they get stuck, but you don't need to know the technical nuances as to what was the parameter to use, or what are how many iterations you'll have to do and things like that. For that, you have your team who will do that. But if you're a part of the team, then I would expect this team member to really know their stuff well in terms of the technical nuances, and I may not expect them to do so many manipulations of stakeholder mapping or this or that, etc., that the leader will be able to take care of. So it's about what is your role in the project, and accordingly you need to bring the right skills to the table.
No, great. Very, very clearly articulated. Thanks. So, now, so I've been in organizations where we do deep learning, ML/AI projects. We say we'll build predictive models, and so if you look at the spectrum of projects, there are business expectations on projects where it's like a quick turnaround, solve it for me now type of stuff, right? There is something happening in the market. My sales is dipping, market share is reducing, or conversion is dropping, whatever, right? And businesses like let's look at the here and now. Let's get past this one. And equally on other things, we are building transformation models. We are building stuff which will have personalization, whatever, which will have huge long-term impact or strategic impact for the company, right? Now, on a spectrum, so I would say one is on one end of the spectrum, which is maybe reasonable level of accuracy and quality, but just let's keep moving. And the other is a lot more evolved long-term investment and all that. So in your own experience, how have you seen this, spectrum? Is it, are as organizations getting more and more mature? Are they moving to the right side, which is more strategic projects, and, allowing their teams to have more and more of self-help type of stuff? Is it really moving there? Because my own experience has been that the analytics brand with the business leader gets built based on how quickly we can solve their current, problems, right? The brand with the board gets built on, strategic transformation, right? But at the end of the day, it is business which eventually creates our own brand. So how do you look at it on the spectrum, and what's been your experience and learnings to that?
I would say, I mean, if I were to talk about something which I had seen about 5 to 10 years back, I would say everyone, all the leaders that I spoke to, business leaders that I spoke to, they always felt that, oh, if I do machine learning, everything will get solved. Hunky dory, magic would happen, right? But over the period of time, because, they have also seen lot of work getting done in machine learning, it's not always that the machine learning is the only solution. At times when you need speed, a simple tabular data can also give you some insights that you will be able to take ahead, very quickly. Whereas, perhaps a quick and dirty machine learning model can also do the same job. So it depends on, how fast you want the results, or, how much you are able to compromise or agree on, right? But at the same time, we can't undermine the value that these deep learning models bring to the table as well, because there are few use cases in the organization which have been getting done through simple visualizations or tabular data, or maybe a simple correlation matrix or something of that sort for long, and those work well as a BAU. But if you want to go a step ahead and improvise and come up with better business benefits through it, then I would suggest that people should also start a parallel project which at a little I would say a mature speed, right, a paced out speed. Give them time to really research about it, and that's where most of the organization nowadays, I have seen that they have started creating these labs within their organizations, right? And these labs have some research project going on at at a regular on a regular basis. And some of the times very innovative solutions come out of these labs, because you are giving those data scientists, decision scientists, good amount of time to really research and come up with something which others have not tried so much in the industry. So, it needs a good amount of hit and trial. It needs a good amount of, understanding things yourself. I mean, if you think about machine learning or AI, 5 years back, even today, I meet so many people who would say, yes, I want to do AI, but they have no understanding of what AI is, right? Similarly, metaverse and, I mean, think of all of those new things, right? Blockchain. A lot of people will keep talking about them because it is cool to talk, but then they don't know exactly what goes behind it, right? So it needs us also some time for us to get into the details and understand those nuances ourselves, and that takes time. So I would say, for your BAU stuff, don't bother what is solving for it. Just keep going with what is solving for it today. But keep a side project which is research oriented and helps you improvise. Once it is in the form and shape which is scalable, then you can bring that into BAU and get on to the next research project.
Great. So you mentioned the word called metaverse. So I'll actually, and then you also been a retail analytics leader, and so just your own experience of how much do you think is metaverse really getting adopted? So I know metaverse will have a lot of data exhaust, and so the ability for us to do a lot more of deep learning models and create value could be higher. But then metaverse has its own challenges itself. It's not as open as Internet 2.0, whatever it is, still in various islands or whatever right now, right? I mean, one is not very clear about the story. But it'll be interesting to hear your own thoughts, given that you've been the retail analytics leader, in terms of what do you think is the some of the use cases where metaverse is likely to get adopted and analytics is going to play, or AI is going to play a huge role in the way those early adopters of metaverse will benefit.
Sure. So metaverse, I think right now it is still in very initial stages, right? Very few organizations are using it, and that too more in a gamification form. I don't think many organizations are doing as great a job as we expected them to do in last couple of years, because I know that metaverse started getting popularity about 2.5, 3 years back, right? And usually analytic industry sees, if something new comes up, it sees a very, very sharp, pace towards it, and a lot of adoption happen. But for metaverse, we've not seen so much, right? A lot of organizations are talking about it, but looks like, the technology is still not supporting it as much as we would want it to, right? But if I were to think about some of the use cases, which I always, used to feel the moment I heard about metaverse, right? I mean, of course, being virtual and being together, right? That itself, we all thought would be very well done. But today, if we talk about in the organization, we still want to come back to office, work physically, working together with each other, etc. So if metaverse was as successful, I think, this coming back to office, as I say, among my colleagues, among my industry friends, etc. I mean, everyone is just talking about having that. So we are able to create that avenue, that platform where you can be virtually present, but we are still not able to give that that feeling of being together to each other through metaverse. I mean, that's very, very clear, right? But if you think about it, from a retail perspective, although we started talking about metaverse only 2-3 years back, but a version of metaverse or augmented reality started much before, right? I remember there was this Reliance, I don't know whether it was Ajio or some version before that, but they had this augmented reality kind of a thing in which you can go to the website, choose the clothes that you're selecting to buy, and you can also choose an avatar of you based on your height, weight, physical structure, etc. And then you can try it out, right? The products that you're looking at. So they would create an avatar which looks pretty much like you, and then you can keep trying the clothes that you're selecting. Lenskart is a big example as well, right? I mean, you can try out the glasses on your face, and then you can, before buying, what it'll look like, etc. I mean, so these things are evolving, but I would really feel that there is a lot which can be achieved there. One of my favorite thing which I say is in while buying products online, and I do a lot of online shopping, even my fridge, ACs, etc. I am very comfortable buying them online, which very few people are, right? They would always want to go touch, feel, look, and etc. But I do that very often. The things where I still miss buying online is perfume. I mean, how do I buy perfume online if I have not tried it? So would there be any technology tomorrow that I'm able to not only uh, see the product, but I should be able to touch, feel the cloth material, or I should be able to experience the fragrance of the perfume and things like that. So yeah, those are the things which I feel would be some new
Yeah.
technologies which can help us.
No, but yeah, I mean, like the magic mirror and all that you said that Reliance tried. So Sephora tries doing something of it, and Rebecca Minkoff is doing. But adoption, like you said, has not been at the pace that one expected when it actually started. Now, that brings me to the next question. See, uh, over the last 15, 17 years, where, this whole analytics and data and big data and AI, ML has gained a lot of prominence, right? One of the biggest thing is that a lot of people, a lot of companies have a lot of internal data. So, there is data that is created. If you take retailer, for example, when a customer is walking in, shopping, etc. As retailers become omni, there is website, e-commerce traffic. There are a lot of feedback loops, maybe some, social media handles, inputs, and all that type of stuff, right? But a lot of this data is essentially what I call as internal data. This is data about, there is obviously there is a customer identifier data and what they're doing. Um, but equally, this tells us about our universe. What it doesn't tell us is the universe outside, right? And that is actually changing far faster than, and we need to keep in sync with that, right? So are you seeing, but then there are also, so there is a Google, possibly mobility data available. There are quite a few stuff that is also available. So in your own experience, and now that, you're also working for Accenture, you're now working for American Express. So everybody is also wanting to understand what's happening in the outside world, right? So how important is outside in perspective becoming? What are some of the approaches to try and see how external data can be sourced, used, etc. If you can throw some light on that.
Certainly. So I think at American Express, in fact, external perspective is extremely, extremely important. In fact, most of us as leaders, they get gauged on how much of external perspective are we able to bring in, whether it is through external data or it is through looking at the competitors, seeing what they're doing, or just looking at the latest technology and whatnot, etc. So and I feel that any progressive organization should have external perspective at the center of their decision making as well, because you can't just sit in your cocoon and do things, right? You have to understand how the industry is progressing, where the movement is, if that growth in a certain technology is going to benefit you or not. So you be early on the game rather than waiting for someone to do it and then you are doing a catching up game. That's not something which will make you an organization which would be progressive enough, right? So I feel that external data helps a long way as well for this. And if I were to talk about from a retail perspective, retail we get a lot of data. For example, if you were to think about maybe a QSR retailer like McDonald's or Subway, right? I mean, the amount of data they have about a customer is humongous, right? Which sub are you buying, for example? What all sauces did you ask me to put in that sub? What all veggies did you ask me to put in your sub? Did you ask the preparer to also put salt and pepper or not? So you are getting to know so much about a customer, about their taste buds, the kind of bread they want and things like that, right? So many things. Similarly, for a retailer who is into fashion retailing, you get to know so many different aspects of the user or the customer in terms of their fashion taste, right? So you can pretty much build like a there's this term we used to use which is called customer genome. So like you get to know each and every aspect of the customer's genes, right? From a taste perspective, from a fashion sense perspective, from your electronics choices perspective. So you can pretty much create a lot of it. But if you are a retailer in a particular domain, you will only get to know about those aspects, right? You will not know, if you are a fashion retailer, you will only get to know about fashion sense. You're an electronic retailer, you'll know that. So how do I then get to know you holistically? Because if I am a person who likes to invest in the latest gadgets, then I would also be perhaps a person who would want to try the latest fashion, right? So you can draw a lot of things from my persona per se, right? And there are a lot of organizations, data providers, who can provide data onto this. There are you can, of course, the traditional ways of getting this data is through cookie enablement, etc. You can buy data from Google, with respect to the search history of the person, etc. Nowadays, location data, mobility data, all of that comes in handy, and you can buy that data also from a lot of places. There are apart from that, the census data. There are the surveys, etc., that keep happening. You can get a lot of data from there also, and there are certain other data providers which also help you understand the credit scores and stuff like that. So it's basically about how much you're able to create that 360-degree view of your customer and then use that, right? External data being one. Apart from that, you can also try and see what all collaborations you can do with different businesses, right? And then if there is a way to create that ID graph for the customer, so that with one identifier for the customer, you would be able to provide them. We were working in my previous organization, we were working with one of the big conglomerate in Middle East, and they were pretty much thinking of creating a CIBIL, like a score for the customer, because from this CIBIL score you only get to know about the customer's financial health, right? And that too, when I'm talking about financial health, the finances which are visible electronically, or if I were to use desi term, black money and white money kind of a thing, right? So you only get to see the white money part of it, but what about the money which you're not making it visible to anyone else, right? And that's where this collaborate was saying that, oh, I have this financial business, I also have this retail business, I also have this jewelry business. So what if I bring it all together, and then I'm able to create a persona of a user, of a customer, who would be able to looking at this person, I would not only know what they're doing in their financial world, delinquency and all of those whatnot, but I'm also able to see, oh, if when they're coming to my retail shop, are they buying a lot of products in cash, and hence I never got to know that they had this money. Or if they're coming and buying jewelry, then I get to know that, oh my god, this another pot of money is still there, so I can offer them much, or I can take a much bigger bet with them in terms of offering them mortgages or anything of that sort, right? So those are, I think, some of the things which really fascinates and can really bring in a lot of you know or I would say unveil a lot of things which are unknown.
Okay, nice. So essentially, obviously, outside in perspective becomes very important, and like you said, organizations as mature as American Express are continuously looking at that. So there is, like you said, third-party data through Google Mobility and other stuff, Google Search History and all that, which is one way of looking at it. And the other thing you're saying is, if within the group there are multiple industries that the group is catering to, then creating a unique identifier and running a program can help them understand customers across multiple industry segment that they are catering to, and create a maybe a more rounded profile of the customer, identify headrooms, and then go after that, right? And the third thing I think you said is also looking at possibly partnerships or whatever with maybe other industry people who have possibly similar customer profile coming to them, and create an ID graph of customer based on that, right? So multiple. Okay, great. So now, so over the last few years now, people are talking about low code, no code a lot more, right? And that's great news for people like me, though I've been an analytic person. I'm not a tech person, so to speak. I've always been on, or rather, like to position myself as a person who understands business more than really writing code or, uh, you know, writing deep learning models or whatever, right? I could write Python, for example, right? That's the background. Though I've been an analytics person, right? And so when low code and no code came, I thought it's a boon for people like me and transformation leaders and all that, who possibly believe they have the ability to understand business context, set the narrative, lead change through their, ability to influence people, whatever, right? And then have a big picture thing. And then low code and no code means all you need to know is be able to ask the right question, define the problem better, set the expectations, create a project plan, and lo and behold, life is going to be easy for you, right? Um, but then again, I think it's a mixed bag, right? I mean, it is helping, but it is not something where you can get away with, not having tech skills unless you have a very strong team which is there to help you on that, right? Um, but then equally for people who are entirely on the business side, the expectation is that things are going to get easier and easier, faster and faster, because all this is going to, earlier you had to go pull the data, do the cleaning, write the thing, a lot of iterative process. Now you just ask it a question, it will tell you type of stuff. And if I keep probing better, then I will get better answers. So what's been your experience of this? And, and given this background, um, how important will become the ability to prompt and ask the right questions? Always important, but will it make business leaders and transformation leaders a lot more effective and reduce their dependence on tech teams, to so to speak?
I would not say that reducing dependence on tech team is anyways going to happen. I mean, day to day, yes, but let me bring you to my first job, Maha. I mean, in my first job, I remember one of my leaders said that today's insight should be tomorrow's report, right? So today, if you're doing something really cool, which is like, oh my God, aha moment, and I've really cracked something, tomorrow it should become a process and it should start coming automatically. That should be one's narrative if they want to grow in any organization or any setting in life as well, right? If you keep doing the same thing over and over again with the same way, so and then another phrase that I remember from the same leader was, if you're doing same thing and expecting different result, it's insane, right? You have to change your ways and then only you will expect different results, right? And having and I've been for last 16 years of my career we feel that providing the business stakeholders or the users of my platforms, because I'm leading the AML platform right now, and we are pretty much trying to automate everything that the a modeler would come and do on my platform and make it easy for them, right? So for example, when the modeler is creating a machine learning model, they have to do some hyperparameter tuning to get to the right parameters which goes into the model so that the right accuracy comes out, right? So and traditionally what used to happen is people would keep trying various parameters, hit and try, etc. Now we've come up with certain guidelines and we are giving them certain best practices, and those best practices are even implementing it on the platform so that the platform takes care of all of those iteration in an optimized fashion. So my one of my modeler can come and tell me that, oh Mamta, I used to do this all by myself earlier and that used to help me understand the data better. Now your platform is doing and I'm not able to understand the data. So you're basically curbing my thought of or my learning curve, right? It is not as deep in it now as it used to be earlier for me. But I always feel, right? I mean, if you think about 20 years back or 25 years back, when we used to have those Fiat Ambassador cars, right? These cars did not even a handbrake in it. So if I have to really, drive the car uphill or downhill. Oh my God, it used to be such a skill. Somebody will have to really, balance with one foot, putting, your foot both on the brake and the accelerator at the same time, and ensuring that you're able to go downhill and uphill. And look at the cars today, right? They have, of course, handbrake came long back, but the cruise control and everything. But does that mean that I'm not enjoying driving my car as much as I was enjoying that time? I am, right? I'm still enjoying driving my car, but I'm able to now, given with all the volume that is coming on the on the roads, I'm able to navigate better, because half of my job car is doing itself, and I am able to now focus on other things, which if the technology hadn't come, then I would have maybe end up meeting with an accident more often, given all the volume that is coming on the roads. Same is the case here, right? Given we are becoming more educated in the analytical area, it is becoming very, very evident that more and more volume of work is going to come on our plate. And more work that I'm able to let the machine do, that's always best for me as a modeler as well, because I will have time to do more, insightful work for my organization, and bring it closer to a place where productionization can happen. Earlier, I used to keep spending my time in those, small nuances, data cleaning, XYZ. If I am, and it is the same process, right? I mean, the data cleaning pretty much is a same process. So why do you need to spend your time? Let the machine do the job, and you take it up post that, so that you're able to really add some value to it. So that's how I see it. I feel.
So what you're saying is things which are more repetitive in nature, things which are more don't require that much of human to human interaction or creativity in thinking is something, the low code, no code platforms and the machine learnings will actually help us save time on that to be able to think through more on the business side of it, think differently, think creatively and all that. Am I right in understanding
Exactly.
that?
Totally bang on.
So now, low code, no code platforms and future of AI, everybody's hearing of so many things that's happening in that space. Like you said, things efficiency will continue to increase for people to be able to have a lot more business perspective and solve, the problems in more creative, more insightful fashion. Equally, there is, when we speak of metaverse, you touched upon, the future of work where, post the pandemic, people working from home or prefer working from home, prefer working from their, hometowns or native places. A lot of companies doing hybrid, remote work. I mean, I'm an old school guy who always to feel analytics and transformation has to happen in the office. It is more about people to people interaction, creativity gets bred there and all the type of stuff, right? And now I'm seeing that, okay, you can do analytics remotely, you can do brainstorming remotely, thanks to, the Zooms and the MS Teams of the world and all that, right? And then there's a lot of people also migrating to becoming more, there is a population migration happening to freelance as well, right? So there is in terms of the people working and their their preferences, work-life balance requirements, all that. The pandemic's actually reset quite a few things, right? Equally, from a future of AI perspective, a lot of stuff is happening where a lot of things can be automated, a lot of things maybe easy to understand and use insights better on that. So where do you see future of AI and future of work merging? Will it really disrupt the way the analytics industry is set today? Where do you see it going? I mean, is it even possible that somebody sitting out of India is going to solve a very critical problem for a similar company in maybe US or in Europe or something? And is it far easier now to do that than 3-4 years back? Is it likely to evolve more in that direction? What's your thought?
I feel, I mean, this has been, as you rightly mentioned, right? I mean, pandemic really fast forwarded us, right? I mean, we of course were on that path. In fact, when I was in Accenture for last, I spent about 8 years, little more than 8 years in Accenture. And for all those eight and a half years, me and my entire team, we were all working from home all the time. right? It was only, when the client visits were happening, or if we were visiting client offices or something else, leadership visits, etc., would happen, then only we would go to office, right? And or if we are just, keeping some team outing and, spending some time together. But otherwise, I was taking care of a lot of global clients across US, Europe, Asia. A lot of, around the clock we were working and solving business problems for all of our clients. So what you're saying that, someone sitting in a remote village in, let's say, a small village in Bihar. So I had, a lot of these campus hires who would work from their, hometowns, sitting in a remote village in Bihar and solving for something which a big retailer in US may be requiring. So all of that was already happening. I don't think, that is something which was new for companies like Accenture, but pandemic fast forwarded it for everyone else as well, right? I mean, all the organizations started doing that, and this mental block that we had, right? That you have to be present in the office to be able to really create, that impact. So I guess that is gone totally. Everyone now understands that, given the technology, you are able to deliver what you're required to deliver, even sitting anywhere, right? But what the technology is still not solved for is, how do I create visibility for myself, right? How do I really bring in that thought leadership? I mean, of course, I can still, join a virtual meeting and present there, etc. But, we are human beings, and we are, by design, we were created to be social beings as well, right? And we don't feel that happiness, and that's where, when I was talking about metaverse as well, right? We've been able to really make it very transactional, right? The technology has made it very, very transactional. I'm still able to do everything that I'm expected to do, but am I able to create the same visibility for myself when I am present in front of my leader? I don't know. Am I able to really create the strong, that emotional connects with my colleague as I was able to when I was on office? Again, I don't know, right? So I am really looking for those those technologies which will enable me to do these aspects as well, right? I mean, I can very well, I mean, as a junior analyst, I can always join the right meetings, keep my video off, and keep contributing, right? But would my leader know who am I? Will they be able to really know my uh, personality aspects? They would know my technical skills, but would they know my personality aspects? And at the times when I would need help from my leaders, will they be able to support me as well as if they knew me personally as well? So, those aspects, how do I bring those through technology, is what I'm still looking for.
Yeah. So you're saying it's about the human touch in terms of how does one really emotionally connect, feel the energy and all that. Yeah, I mean, when we're in office, apart from the work that you do, you would actually step out of your cabin, have a chat, share a joke. Somebody would talk about something that's happening in their house, and there's a lot more of personal connect, and there is a level of bonding. I mean, you can't quantify that, but there is a level of feeling camaraderie that used to get felt through a personal in-person interaction, which the current thing is not clear how it will solve. I mean, so if it's a repetitive thing, you're already in the system for maybe 3, 4, 5 years. People already know you. Let's say Mamta and Maha have worked together for 4, 5 years. They know each other. Then this is something that can still work very well, continue to work very well. However, if the first time anybody is interacting, then the human touch, the in-person interaction becomes a lot more important, unless there is a tech solution at some point in future for that, for really people to perceive and build a level of emotional connect at another level, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
valid
one of
point.
the things, if I were to add there, Maha, right? I mean, most of the organizations, what I saw, even in my previous organization, because of pandemic, we from India started participating in lot more client, meetings. Because there was always this thing that, oh, you need to be physically present with the client to be able to, brainstorm with them. But with pandemic, it was, plain level ground for all of us. Whether you're sitting in US or in India, you are still virtually connecting with the client. So what is stopping you to do that, right? And because of that, what happened is that, we started getting involved in lot many more things, right? Similarly, for when I came to MX, I asked the same question, right? Because everyone was talking about that we are now delivering much more than what we were delivering earlier prior to pandemic. So what is it? And one of the thing which was coming up was that even for American Express or for any other, when I'm talking to a few of my friends as well, we are now from India or from any other part of the world, we are getting involved into lot many more things, and hence the productivity has increased. But maybe that EQ has gone down because when we are keeping meetings after the meetings, it has become extremely transactional, right? You get into the meeting, you get to the point, you solve for it, move on to the next thing and solve for it, right? What is happening to those water cooler chats, right?
Correct.
Where do I get to know you is what is missing, I feel.
Oh, absolutely agree. Those water cooler chat, that's the word I was looking for, water cooler discussions, right? Which are extremely powerful, extremely powerful that we are missing out. But equally, technology has helped us break some assumptions and barriers we had in our mind in terms of what can or
Exactly.
cannot be done, remotely. Right? So that brings me to the last question that I had in this chat, which is, uh, you're one of those top 11 women leaders in analytics and AI. Um, so people look up to you. So for any aspiring, and since you're a woman leader, I'll actually ask the question of, as a, for any aspiring, woman who is wanting to make it, in the data science and analytics space, right? What would be your advice? I'm asking women there because I feel analytics and AI, unlike in manufacturing or any of the other thing where a lot more of maybe physical presence is involved, this is more about, this is actually given to women being a lot more successful than in any other field. Also, contradict me on the fact that there are other industries where, this is better than other industries, but I'll leave it to you to answer the way you would like to.
I think you read my mind, Maha. I really wanted to contradict you on this because, see, first of all, although men or women, I don't think we should say that one is able to do one thing better than other, right? I mean, yes, maybe far back in history when things were required a lot of physical work, etc., wherein the muscle bar is stronger among men as compared to women. I mean, even in manufacturing today, right, with so many of machineries come into play, etc., I don't think it's really has come out to be I would not say come out to be, has remained as a physical strength game as it was earlier. So I would say that even in manufacturing industry or any other industry, now women are capable of playing the equal role because there are so many technology enablers for us to do that. But if I were to come to STEM and AI as well, right? I mean, I guess that first of all, there is a strong need for us to bring in a lot of awareness around STEM courses, etc., among the women. But that's a separate topic altogether. But if I were to talk about, any advice that I have to give, I mean, leave alone whether it is a girl or a boy, I would just say that first 4 to 5 years of your career, just spend on developing those critical technical skills in you, because that is what is going to create your brand for yourself. People would know you that this person has these skills. So if you need anything and everything to be done in this, you can go to this person. So that creating a brand is extremely important. So don't be in a rush to go on a career growth path. Growth will happen, it will happen automatically. You don't need to bother about it. Of course, you have to keeping your ears and eyes open so that you know what is going on in the organization, and pitch for the opportunities when they come to your plate. But don't keep that as your sole objective, that when am I going to become a people leader, or when am I going to get my next promotion. If you are focusing on developing those key skills and creating a brand for yourself, being collaborative in the organization, the growth would happen automatically. So that's one thing I would say, irrespective of gender, that they should keep in mind. For girls specifically, what I would say is, and that is irrespective of the the domain, I would say we as girls, we are brought the way we are, given our upbringing, in that we are, told that, and the kind of upbringing that in last 10 to 20 years girls are getting is very different from what they were getting prior to that, right? Now last 10 to 20 years, the girls are told that we have this special superpower to multitask and all of that. I would just condemn it. I would say that do away with that superwoman syndrome, because what happens is, in our own heads we keep thinking that, oh, I am expected to be a superwoman, I'm expected to do well at job, and I'm expected to do well at home. I would say don't do that to yourself. Okay, do a fair share of work at home, do a fair share of work at office. You are a single individual human being. There is only so much that you will be able to do, but whatever you do a great job at it, is what I would say. Don't shy away asking for help. I think the biggest thing one can do to themselves is to create a network of support, right? Create lot of friends who can help you when you need in a take to maybe take care of a child at home or parents at home, etc. you know keep I think the biggest support system that I have is of my in-laws, right? I mean, I cannot say that I could have grown so much if my mom-in-law and my father-in-law wouldn't have supported me as much as they do today, right? So most of us feel that we will stay in our nuclear family, we'll have our own independence and privacy and everything, but I feel that the kind of support and the kind of strength that you get when you're staying in a joint family, that cannot be beaten. So I guess that's one more thing which I would suggest, either to a man or woman, create that support system for yourself. Specifically for girls, do away with your superwoman syndrome. You are not a superwoman. You are a woman who has the right focus, and just go with that.
Oh, brilliantly articulated, and thanks for contradicting me on that. I stand corrected. And Mamta, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. And I look forward to staying connected with you as well. Thanks once again for making time.
Awesome.
And I'm sure our
Lovely talking
listeners
to
will
you.
enjoy it.
Lovely talking to you. Amazing questions. Thoroughly enjoyed.
Great. Thank you. You could